Welcome back to The Intentional Workplace, a podcast where we spend 15 minutes each week to talk about everything HR to improve your business. I'm Maria Williams,
And I'm Jacob Stone.
and this week we're going to talk about professional development programs. Grow your people or watch them go is the topic for today. So I'll just kind of kick things off. And what I'd like to dive into first is where where are leaders unintentionally failing to create growth opportunities for employees? And how does that push good employees out the door? And this, like everything else we talk about, is a great topic that really ties into a lot of our other discussions around kind of culture and engagement and developing employees. But one thing that I just want to start out with, and we can build on it, and from what I've seen, in my in the roles that I've been in, I often see key top performers staying too long in their roles, and that's usually because managers or leaders really don't want to lose them and they kind of view them as being too valuable to lose, so they kind of hoard the top talent and really key performers on their teams and don't allow that growth. And if you have somebody that's really good at doing their job and exceeds expectations and all of that, but they feel like they're not getting those development opportunities, that is ripe for a retention issue. So that's one thing that I often see. It's like, this person is super great in this role. Like, why would we move them? They're doing such an amazing job. Why would we change anything? And that just kind of creates this behavior of not, not allowing or providing room for that growth.
Yeah, and I think one of the big issues, and you hear this a lot with, especially in bigger corporate settings. If someone's absolutely crushing it, you don't want to move them because they're crushing it. Why would I want to change anything that's happening if they're doing really well? So it's always that quote unquote joke of, if you really want to move up the ladder, like, don't give it your all. Just be good enough and like shake the right hands. And I think especially in today's work environment, we look too often into this want to promote, climb the corporate ladder, as it would say, and this, that, and the other thing. When that necessarily, as we've talked in past episodes, isn't always the case. I don't need to move up per se. Whereas the boomer generation was very heavy on titles. I want to be the VP of this. I need to be the manager or the director of that. Whereas Gen X, millennial, we're much more into pursuing the actual actions or what the job entails, and then work-life balance. And also, how am I going to develop better as a not only as an individual, as a person, but also in my professional career. So pivoting, I think, is really the key word here. For when you're having a top performer and they're doing really good, there's only so much that they can hold on to, right? To before they just lose interest completely. So how can we pivot of what they're doing to not necessarily have them do something completely different, but how can we develop them or give them some other value of why they should stay here and keep doing what they're doing? How are we going to motivate them? I think that's the bigger question, not necessarily, how are we going to promote them? How are we going to, unless they want that, that's a whole different conversation. But um, how are we going to actually keep them on this path to be as beneficial as they're being to the organization while keeping them engaged? And I think that all boils down to employee betterment.
Yeah, and I think this starts from when an employee is onboarded. So if we think to kind of the full life cycle of a candidate and an employee at a company, really, even when somebody is first starting in a role or at a company, it's having those conversations as early as possible about what's next for you in your career. And it's never too early, in my opinion, to start those conversations so that you can really get an understanding of what it is that the person is seeking, and then help as a manager help them. Maybe it's not right away, but at least thinking ahead of, okay, these are the things that I want to start putting in front of them once they do X, Y, and Z, and have a plan and be open about that plan and transparent about it, And you should never have employees in your organization that are not clear on what's next for them,
Yeah.
whatever that may be.
And I think too, I would even go as early instead of having the earlier conversations, I'm all about having it into the job description.
Yep.
This is the path in the interview process we're going to talk to you about. This is the path that we see. If you're doing X, Y, and Z, you can move up if that's one direction you want to go. Or we also provide these wonderful employee engagement and betterment programs where we help with continuous education. If you have a seminar that's relevant to the job, to the industry, to whatever, and you want to go, we have an expense account that we utilize and leverage just for that, to send our employees so that they can go to these things. We include them in pivotal and consequential meetings, with board members, with C-level execs that are making key decisions. We want you to be part of these things. These are all part of that employee enrichment, employee betterment. So I'm all about having the conversation early. I'm all about having it in the interview process.
Mhm.
These are the expectations. I don't want to be reactionary with it. I want you to understand this is what is expected. I want you to become better.
Yeah, and on the candidate side of things, speaking of the interview process, for any job seekers out there or anyone going through interviews, ask these questions. I mean,
For
ask the
sure.
questions around development. Once I'm in this role, what does that look like? What kind of opportunities will I have to continue to grow and stretch myself and all of those things. So that's a great kind of question to ask and
Definitely.
a great thing to have a conversation about early on. Good
And
point.
it's a good indicator of what their culture is, right? I know we always talk about culture. It's like as if it's the lifeline, lifeblood of the company, right? If a company is all about that, then you know that you're going to be there long term.
Yeah.
If it's like, well, they don't have that and they have high turnover, there's no secret of why that is. And so, yes, for candidates out there, I would absolutely 100% put that in your 3 questions to ask during your interview process. Um, it's a it's key.
Yeah. Yeah, and these types of, once there are employees kind of in roles, um, I've sometimes these conversations happen too late, and I've seen this where you have someone great that decides to leave the organization, and it only comes out in the exit interviews that this person was looking for something different, or they felt like they were stuck in this role and didn't have any room to grow. And those should never, and it happens all the time, but those should never be those shouldn't be conversations that happen during the exit interviews.
No, yeah.
They should happen well before that. So it's really important to keep these conversations going on a regular basis. I always encourage anyone that I'm working with to have at least a quarterly conversation with their team members if you're a manager um around their professional development and growth, and kind of have these development plans in place, because some people are interested in really climbing the ladder and getting bigger titles and getting bigger roles. Some aren't, and that's perfectly okay too.
Mhm.
And I think that all comes down to that open communication about what next looks like for me. Maybe next is staying and excelling in the role that you're in for several years, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. So that's where the communication, and as managers, kind of knowing your team. And for those of you who are not managers out there, make sure that you're pushing for these conversations with managers. I think that's just a good practice to get into, to understand kind of what opportunities are out there for you.
Absolutely. And with those conversations too, don't be afraid to leverage your HR. I mean, this is really what they're there for. I know a lot of people always think HR is like the company's police officer. We're not. We're here to help facilitate those conversations because those are hard. If you've been working at a position for a while and you're busted and you haven't heard anything, any feedback, no attaboys, no none of that, um, you know, sometimes it's awkward to try to have a conversation with your manager, your director. So go hit up your HR person and say, "Look, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't know if we offer these types of programs, and if we don't, how can we start this initiative? Can you help me facilitate this conversation?" 10 times out of 10, I say 9 times out of 10, that HR person is going to say, "Absolutely, would love to do it. Put some time on my calendar. Let's make it happen." So you just gotta put yourself out there.
Yep. Yes. And I think for those of you who might be thinking, well, our company doesn't have formal development programs or trainings or things like that for our team, we don't, we don't offer that, we don't have it, so what can we do? I think there's so many ways that you can think about developing team members. And a couple that I've seen work really well are just stretch opportunities. So if you don't have the ability to put somebody into a new role or a promotion or something like that, it's a really good way to assess on both sides whether the employee likes this type of role and responsibilities, and whether this on the flip side whether the employee can do it. But these stretch opportunities, so it could be anything. I mean, maybe it's somebody taking the lead on an upcoming event that the company has, and you're giving them some additional responsibilities because they said that they're interested in leading events, and you kind of give them a little test run and see if they like it and see if they're good at it. And but that those types of things, these stretch opportunities, if there's an interest on both sides, it's a really good way to get that exposure. I've also seen it backfire if we're saying, oh, we'll just give this person some stretch opportunities and more work and all of
They
that. And
completely flub it.
exactly. And they feel overwhelmed already, and they view this as like, oh, that's just more work piling on to my plate that I can't handle. So it's a very, it's a balance. And
That's
I
it, but
think it
then
needs
again, I
to
mean,
be two ways.
that's like, that can also be a good thing, because now instead of investing all this time and energy and money, now we know. And
That's right.
the candidate knows, goes, I thought I wanted that, but holy smokes, I don't want anything to do with that,
Yep.
and so that's beneficial too. I also think a good initiative as well, even if you don't have any place to start, because I know a lot of like smaller companies, startups, they don't even know, I want to do this, but I don't even know where to start.
Mhm.
Think about doing, and I don't like, not company retreats, but even going out to lunch. Take a team lunch, and what you do there is, um, you you have your fellowship, you have your, we're just hanging out, but pick a topic. We're gonna pick X, Y, and Z topic that's relative to my team, and we're just gonna discuss it for 10 minutes during lunch or at the end of it or something like that. 10 minutes. We're just gonna have a round table, and it's free. It's free thought. There's no consequences. There's none of that, no judgment, and you just have it. You will see that that goes a long way, and you'll hear from your employees about, wow, this, I didn't even think that, John Smith over here really thought about that. I didn't think that, Elizabeth over there, she'd be really good at doing something like that. Who knew? So you'll see a lot of that come out as well. Just having candid conversations. It's a really good place to start.
I love that. I love that idea. Sometimes just getting out of the office, if everybody's kind of in person and you have the ability to do that, but sometimes just getting in a
Yeah.
different setting and yeah, that really can help a lot and boost engagement. So,
Yeah. Or I was gonna say, if you're remote, do virtual remote
yeah,
happy hours. I remember
that's
back in the
right.
2020 days, right? During the COVID thing, we used to do those all the time, right? Everyone
I
grab your
know.
favorite beverage and we'll meet you on Zoom.
That's right.
So got to
Everyone
get
got
creative
sick of
with
it
it.
after a while, but
Yeah.
it was fun when it first started.
Yeah, it was fun. It
Um,
was different, right?
yeah, that's right. Um, Great. So I just have a few, just to wrap up, something to leave you with, some questions that are good things to ask yourself if you're trying to grow in your role, or if you're a manager or leader of a company, to ask your employees. What skills do you want to build next is a great question to kind of ask on a regular basis. What kind of problems do you want more exposure to, or what kind of things do you want more exposure to? And also, what would make this role feel like forward progress to you? Because that changes person to person, what that progress or increased responsibility might look like. So those are just three questions to leave you with.
I love those. Love them.
All right. So thanks for joining us this week. And tune in next week where we'll talk about burnout. And our topic next week is high performer or burnout waiting to happen. So tune in.
All right.
Thanks.
I'll see you next week.
All righty. Bye.